The alarm bells rang through the space station like screaming birds. Captain Jake Morrison ran down the metal hallway, his boots making loud sounds on the floor. Red lights flashed everywhere, making everything look like blood. "Captain, there." "Coming!" shouted Lieutenant Amy Collins from the main control room. Her face was white with fear. "The aliens are almost here." Jake looked at the big screen that showed space around their station. Hundreds of alien ships moved toward them like a black cloud. The ships looked like giant bugs with wings made of metal and bone. They had been fighting these creatures for 3 years now, and humanity was losing badly. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrians. They came from somewhere far away in space, and they wanted to kill every human they found. They had already destroyed 50 human colonies. Millions of people were dead. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked. "Too many," Amy said. Her voice shook. "Maybe 300. We only have 20 ships left." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 20 ships against 300. It was impossible. But they had to try. On Earth, General Pete Williams sat in a room deep underground. The walls were covered with screens showing the war. Every screen showed bad news. Red dots marked the places where humans used to live. Now those places were empty and burned. "General, we got a message from the Mars colony," said Colonel Lisa Martinez. She was a tough woman who had been fighting the aliens for 2 years. "They need help. The aliens will reach Mars in 1 month." Pete looked at the big map of space. The red areas were getting bigger every day. The aliens were winning everywhere. Human soldiers fought hard, but it didn't matter. The aliens were too strong, too smart, and there were too many of them. "What about the Jupiter stations?" Pete asked. "Gone," Lisa said. "All of them. The aliens destroyed them yesterday." Pete felt tired. He was 60 years old and had been a soldier for 40 years. He had fought in many wars, but this was different. This time, humans might lose everything. The worst part was how the aliens fought. They learned from every battle. When humans used laser guns, the aliens grew thick skin that stopped lasers. When humans used big bombs, the aliens made their ships harder to break. It was like fighting an enemy that got stronger every time you hit it. Back on the space station, Jake watched the alien ships get closer. Each ship was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than human ships. They moved like living things, bending and turning in ways that should have been impossible. "Sir, should we run away?" asked Amy. Jake thought about it. They could try to escape, but the alien ships were faster. And even if they got away, where would they go? The aliens were everywhere now. "No," Jake said. "We fight." The battle started. When the aliens were still far away, human ships shot their best weapons at the enemy. Blue laser beams and bright missiles flew through space. Some of them hit the alien ships and made big explosions, but the alien ships kept coming. The weapons that hurt them began to work less and less. It was like the aliens were learning how to stop getting hurt. "Captain, our lasers aren't working." "Anymore," shouted Lieutenant Bob Turner from the weapon controls. "The aliens are blocking them somehow." Jake watched as his ships shot everything they had at the aliens. But the alien ships just kept coming, like nothing was hurting them at all. Then the aliens started shooting back. Their weapons were different from human weapons. They shot something that looked like green fire. When the green fire hit a human ship, the ship just melted away like ice in hot water. "The U's freedom is gone," Amy called out. "The aliens destroyed it." Jake watched on the screen as more human ships died. The U.S. Liberty melted under green fire. The U.S. Justice broke apart when an alien ship crashed into it. In 10 minutes, half of the human ships were gone. "All ships, pull back," Jake ordered. "We can't win here." The remaining human ships turned around and flew away as fast as they could. The aliens followed them for a while, then stopped. They didn't seem to care about the humans who escaped. They had bigger things to do down on Earth. Pete Williams got the news about the space station battle. Another defeat. Another step closer to the end of humanity. How many ships did we lose? He asked. 15, Lisa said. Only 5 ships got away. Pete sat down in his chair. 15 more ships gone. They didn't have many ships left. Maybe 100 in the whole solar system. The aliens had thousands. General, there's something else, Lisa said. The aliens are doing something strange. They're not just destroying our colonies anymore. They're studying them. What do you mean? They're taking apart our buildings, our machines, our weapons. It's like they're trying to learn everything about us before they kill us all. Pete felt cold. If the aliens were studying human technology, they would become even harder to fight. Soon, there would be no way to hurt them at all. The next day, more bad news came. The aliens had reached the asteroid belt. They were destroying the mining stations and the space factories. Soon, humans wouldn't be able to build new ships or weapons. Commander Rick Davis was on one of the last science ships. He was trying to understand how the aliens worked. Maybe if they understood the enemy, they could find a way to fight back. The alien ships are alive, he told his team. They're not just machines. They're like giant animals that can think and learn. That's impossible, said Dr. Helen Price. She was the best scientist they had. Look at this. Rick showed her pictures of alien ship parts. See how the metal grows? See how it changes? These ships can heal themselves. They can change their shape. They can learn. Helen looked at the pictures and felt scared. How could humans fight something like this? On Mars, the people were getting ready for the aliens to come. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was in charge of protecting the planet. He had 50,000 soldiers, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Sir, the aliens will be here in 3 weeks, said Sergeant Kate Brown. She was young, but she had already fought the aliens many times. I know, Steve said. Are the people ready to leave? Some of them won't go. They say this is their home. Steve understood. Mars had been home to humans for over 100 years. Many people had been born there. They didn't want to leave, but staying meant dying. The aliens never left anyone alive. That night, Jake Morrison sat in his ship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens were coming. They would reach Earth soon, and then it would all be over. He thought about his daughter on Earth. She was only 8 years old. What kind of world would she grow up in? Would she grow up at all? The aliens were too strong, too smart, and too many. They had better ships, better weapons, and they learned from every mistake. Humanity had tried everything, and nothing worked. Jake didn't know it yet, but somewhere in the back of his mind, an idea was starting to grow. A crazy idea that might be the only way to save humanity. But first, they had to survive long enough to try it. 3 months passed like a bad dream. The aliens kept winning every battle. Every day, more human colonies died. Every day, the red areas on the star maps grew bigger. Commander Rick Davis worked day and night in his lab ship. He was trying to understand how the aliens could learn so fast. His team brought him pieces of alien ships that had been shot down. There weren't many pieces, because the aliens usually took their dead ships away. Look at this, Rick said to Dr. Helen Price. He held up a small piece of alien ship metal. Watch what happens when I heat it up. Rick put the metal piece near a flame. The metal changed color and grew thicker. In just a few minutes, it became harder to burn. It's learning, Helen said. The metal is learning how to stop fire from hurting it. That's right, Rick said. But here's the important part. Look how long it took. Helen looked at her watch. 6 minutes. Exactly. The aliens need time to learn. They can't do it right away. Rick had been studying the aliens for months. He found out that they needed about 6 hours to fully change their bodies to fight new weapons. But there was something else he learned that was even more important. They can only learn from things that actually hurt them, Rick said. If they never see a weapon, they can't learn to stop it. This was the first good news humans had heard in 3 years. On Mars, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was getting ready for the aliens to arrive. His soldiers were building walls and digging holes to hide in. But Steve knew it wouldn't help much. The aliens had destroyed bigger defenses than this. "Sir, why are we making these old bombs?" asked Sergeant Kate Brown. She was watching soldiers. "Mix chemicals that looked like something from 100 years ago. Because sometimes old things work better than new things," Steve said. Steve had been reading about wars from long ago. Wars from before humans went to space. Back then, people fought with fire and steel and chemicals that burned. The aliens had never seen weapons like that. "The aliens learned to fight our space weapons," Steve explained. "But what if we don't use space weapons? What if we fight like humans fought 1,000 years ago?" Kate didn't understand, but she trusted Steve. He had kept them alive this long. Admiral Nancy Brooks was in charge of all the human ships. She sat in a meeting room with other important people, trying to make a plan. But every plan seemed hopeless. "We have 93 ships left," she said. "The aliens have thousands. What about the new weapons?" asked General Pete Williams. "The scientists said they found something." "Commander Davis thinks the aliens need time to learn," Nancy said. "But I don't see how that helps us. We still have to fight them." Pete looked at the reports from the last battles. Every time humans used a new weapon, it worked for a little while. Then the aliens learned to stop it. But what if they could use weapons the aliens had never seen? "What if we don't use our best weapons?" Pete said. "What if we use old ones?" Everyone looked at him like he was crazy. "Think about it," Pete said. "The aliens have been fighting our modern weapons for 3 years. They know how to stop all of them. But what about weapons from before we had spaceships?" On the research ship, Rick Davis was having the same idea. He was looking at old books about human wars. Wars with gunpowder and fire and sharp metal. The aliens had never seen weapons like that. "Dr. Price," Rick said, "what if we're fighting this war wrong?" "What do you mean?" Helen asked. "We're trying to beat the aliens with better technology. But they're better at technology than we are. What if we use worse technology instead?" Helen thought about it. "You mean use old weapons?" "Not just old weapons. Old ways of fighting. The aliens expect us to be smart and careful. What if we're not? What if we fight like wild animals?" The idea was crazy, but it might work. The aliens had learned to fight against human technology, but they had never learned to fight against human anger. Meanwhile, the aliens were getting closer to Mars. Their ships filled the sky like a black cloud. People on Mars could see them with their eyes now, not just on screens. "How long do we have?" Steve asked. 2 weeks, Kate said. "Maybe less." Steve looked at his soldiers. They were good people, but they were scared. They had seen what happened to other colonies. They knew they were probably going to die. "Listen to me," Steve said to all his soldiers. "The aliens think they know how to fight us. They think we're just another smart species with good weapons. But they're wrong." The soldiers listened carefully. "We're not just smart," Steve continued. "We're human. That means we're crazy enough to fight with our hands if we have to. It means we get angry when someone hurts our friends. It means we never give up, even when we should." Some soldiers smiled. They were starting to understand. "The aliens can learn to stop our guns," Steve said. But can they learn to stop our anger? Can they learn to stop us from fighting with rocks and sticks if we have to? Back on Earth, Pete Williams was reading old military books. Books about wars fought with swords and spears and fire. The more he read, the more he believed this crazy idea might work. "Lisa," he said to Colonel Martinez, "I want you to do something strange." "What is it, General?" "I want you to get rid of all our best weapons. All our laser guns, all our smart missiles, all our energy shields." Lisa looked shocked. "Sir, that would leave us defenseless." "No," Pete said, "it would leave us human." The plan was simple and crazy. Instead of trying to outsmart the aliens, humans would outfight them. They would use weapons and tactics that the aliens had never seen. Fire and steel and chemicals. Anger and fear, and the will to never give up. It was the kind of plan that could save humanity or get everyone killed. But since everyone was probably going to die anyway, it was worth trying. Admiral Brooks got the orders and thought Pete had lost his mind. But then she thought about all the battles they had lost, all the good people who had died. Maybe crazy was what they needed. "Send the message to all ships," she said. "Operation Primitive is approved." All across human space, soldiers got new orders. Throw away the laser guns. Get out the fire bombs. Put away the smart computers. Fight with anger and steel. The aliens were coming to Mars. They expected to find scared humans with high-tech weapons that they could easily learn to stop. Instead, they were going to find something they had never seen before. They were going to find humans who had decided to stop. Being civilized. Commander Davis sent his research to every human ship and base. The aliens need 6 hours to learn. They can only learn from what they see, use weapons they've never seen, fight in ways they don't understand. On Mars, Steve Parker's soldiers were ready. They had put away their energy weapons and picked up tools that looked like they came from ancient times. Fire bombs, sharp metal, acid that burned through anything. "Remember," Steve told them, "we're not trying to outsmart them. We're trying to outfight them. Be loud, be angry, be human." The last civilians were leaving Mars on transport ships. But many people chose to stay. They wanted to fight for their home. Among them was an old man named Frank Carter. He had been a soldier when he was young, before the aliens came. He knew how to fight with old weapons. "I remember when wars were simple," he told the young soldiers. "You saw the enemy, you got angry, and you fought until one of you was dead. Maybe it's time to be simple again." The alien ships were almost at Mars now. In a few days, the battle would begin. The aliens expected another easy victory. They had won every battle for 3 years, but this time would be different. This time, humans weren't going to fight like a smart, civilized species. They were going to fight like what they really were. They were going to fight like the descendants of warriors, who had conquered their own world with nothing but determination and violence. The aliens were about to learn what humans were like when they stopped trying to be better than their enemies and started trying to be more human instead. The alien ships came to Mars like a storm of metal and death. 300 huge ships blocked out the sun. The people on Mars looked up and saw nothing but alien ships covering the sky. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker stood with his soldiers. On the red dirt of Mars, they looked different now. Instead of clean uniforms and shiny weapons, they wore old-style armor and carried weapons that looked like they came from ancient times. "Today we find out if we're right," Steve said to Sergeant Kate Brown. "Today we find out if being human is enough." The aliens sent down their first wave of ships. They expected the humans to shoot at them with laser guns and missiles. Instead, something strange happened. The humans threw bottles full of burning liquid at the alien ships. The bottles broke and covered the ships with fire that stuck to their metal skin. The alien ships had never seen anything like it. "What is this?" the alien commander asked his officers. They watched as their ships burned with a fire that wouldn't go out. Their learning systems tried to understand what was happening, but the fire was too simple. It was just burning liquid, older than space travel. The alien ships tried to put out the fire, but it kept burning. Their metal skin, which had learned to stop laser beams, couldn't stop simple fire from a bottle. "Send more ships," the alien commander ordered, "and tell them to be ready for fire weapons." But the humans weren't done being strange. As more alien ships came down, the humans started shooting them with big guns that fired heavy metal balls. The aliens had never seen weapons like this. Their ships were designed to stop energy beams, not big chunks of metal flying fast. The metal balls smashed through the alien ships like rocks through glass. Some ships crashed into the ground. Others spun out of control and hit each other. "This is impossible," the alien commander said. "These weapons are too simple. How can simple weapons hurt us?" Captain Jake Morrison was watching the battle from his ship in space. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans on Mars were actually winning fights against the aliens. "Sir, should we help them?" asked Lieutenant Amy Collins. "Yes," Jake sighed, "but not with our normal weapons. Get out the old chemical bombs, the ones we use for mining." The human ships in space started dropping things that looked like big metal boxes. When the boxes hit the alien ships, they exploded with fire and smoke and chemicals that ate through metal like acid. The aliens had never seen chemical weapons before. Their ships couldn't adapt fast enough. The acid burned through their hulls before they could learn to stop it. On the ground, the battle was getting stranger. Steve Parker's soldiers were fighting the alien ground troops with weapons that looked like they came from a museum. Sharp metal blades, clubs with spikes, crossbows that shot metal arrows. The alien soldiers were confused. They had fought humans before, but never like this. These humans weren't staying far away and shooting energy weapons. They were running at the aliens with loud screams and hitting them with heavy metal sticks. "They're acting like animals," one alien soldier said to another. "Why are they fighting with such old weapons?" The answer came when one of the humans hit an alien with a big hammer. The alien's armor, which could stop laser beams, cracked under the heavy blow. The alien fell down and didn't get up. "The weapons are too simple," the alien officer reported to his commander. "Our armor can't adapt to pure physical force. It's like being hit with a rock." But it wasn't just the weapons that were different. The humans were different too. They were loud and angry and seemed to enjoy fighting. They painted their faces with bright colors and yelled war cries as they attacked. The aliens were used to fighting civilized enemies who fought with rules and tactics. These humans had no rules. They bit and scratched and threw dirt in the aliens' eyes. They used tricks that no military school had ever taught. Steve Parker led a group of soldiers against an alien squad. Instead of careful military tactics, he just ran at them screaming and swinging a metal club. The aliens were so surprised they forgot to shoot. "This is how humans really fight," Steve yelled as he smashed his club into an alien's weapon. "This is what we were like before we became civilized." The battle on Mars lasted for 3 days. By the end, something impossible had happened. The humans had won. Not all of them, but enough. The aliens had lost more ships and soldiers than they had ever lost before. The alien commander couldn't understand it. "They used the most basic weapons possible," he said. "Fire and metal and acid. How did they hurt us so badly?" His science officer had been studying the battle. "Sir, our adaptation systems are designed for advanced technology. We can learn to stop energy weapons and smart missiles." But we can't adapt to a burning stick or a sharp rock. Those things are too simple. Commander Rick Davis watched the battle. Reports from his science ship. His crazy idea had worked, but only partly. The humans had won on Mars, but they had lost a lot of soldiers too. We need to do this everywhere, he told Dr. Helen Price. Every human ship, every human base. We need to fight like our ancestors did. The news of the Mars victory spread through human space faster than light. For the first time in 3 years, humans had won a real battle against the aliens. General Pete Williams called a meeting of all the human commanders. They met in a secure room deep underground on Earth. Mars proved that this works, Pete said. But we need to do it bigger. We need to change how we fight everywhere. Admiral Nancy Brooks was there too. She had been thinking about Jake Morrison's report from the space battle. My ships are ready, she said. We've been taking off all our advanced weapons and putting on the old ones. What about the soldiers? Asked Colonel Lisa Martinez. This isn't just about weapons. It's about fighting like animals instead of soldiers. Pete smiled grimly. Then we need to remember how to be animals. The plan was simple. Every human ship would throw away its advanced weapons. Every human soldier would learn to fight with fire and steel and anger. They would stop trying to be better than the aliens and start trying to be more human. It was dangerous. If it didn't work, humanity would die even faster. But if it did work, they might have a chance. The aliens were confused by what had happened on Mars. They sent their smartest officers to study the battle. They tried to understand how such simple weapons could hurt them. We need to adapt, the alien high command decided. We need to learn to fight against these old weapons. But there was a problem. The aliens had spent thousands of years becoming perfect at fighting advanced enemies. They had forgotten how to fight simple enemies. Their whole way of thinking was about adapting to complex technology, not basic violence. Jake Morrison got new orders for his ship. Remove all laser weapons. Load up with chemical bombs and metal projectiles. Train the crew to fight like pirates instead of space marines. Sir, are you sure about this? Amy Collins asked. These weapons are so old. Sometimes old is better than new, Jake said. The aliens have learned to fight against our best technology, but they've never learned to fight against our worst impulses. The next alien attack came at the Jupiter mining stations. The aliens expected to find the same kind of defenses they had easily destroyed before. Instead, they found something that made no sense. The human ships were shooting at them with cannons that fired big metal balls. The humans were throwing bottles of acid and fire. The space stations were launching clouds of poisonous gas. This is not how space battles work, the alien fleet commander said. These weapons are from their planet wars. They belong in a museum, not in space. But the old weapons were working. The metal balls smashed through alien ship hulls. The acid ate through their armor. The poisonous gas made their bioships sick. For the first time in 3 years, an alien fleet turned around and ran away from a human base. The word spread through the alien empire. The humans had changed. They were no longer fighting like a civilized species. They were fighting like wild animals with dangerous weapons. Some aliens wanted to study this new kind of fighting. Others wanted to adapt to it. But their leaders were worried. If the humans kept fighting like this, the war might last much longer than planned. On Earth, people heard about the victories at Mars and Jupiter. For the first time in 3 years, humans were winning battles. Children who had grown up during the war saw their parents smile. But the war was far from over. The aliens still had thousands of ships. They still controlled most of human space. And they were starting to learn how to fight back against the new human tactics. The real test would come when the aliens stopped being surprised and started being prepared. Would old human weapons still work when the aliens expected them? Steve Parker, now promoted to colonel, was training soldiers on Earth. He taught them to fight with swords and fire and their bare hands. He taught them to be loud and angry and never give up. Remember, he told them, we're not trying to outthink the aliens. We're trying to outfight them. Be more human than they expect. Be more dangerous than they can adapt to. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, humanity would fight it as themselves. The human counterattack began 6 months after the victory at Mars. Every human ship in space had been changed. Gone were the clean energy weapons and smart computers. In their place were weapons that looked like they came from humanity's violent past. Admiral Nancy Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Vengeance. The ship looked different now. Its hull was covered with thick metal plates, welded on by hand. Its weapons were a mix of old and new that would have made no sense to anyone a year ago. "All ships report ready," said Captain Jake Morrison. He was now commanding the new irregular warfare fleet. His own ship carried weapons that ranged from antimatter missiles to giant crossbows that could shoot through space. "Begin Operation Savage Return," Nancy ordered. The human fleet moved toward the alien-controlled systems like a pack of wild animals. They didn't fly in neat formations, like military ships were supposed to. They spread out and moved in random patterns that made no sense to anyone watching. The aliens were waiting for them. They had studied the battles at Mars and Jupiter. They thought they understood what the humans were doing now. "The humans are using simple weapons," the alien fleet commander told his officers. "We have adapted our ships to resist fire and acid and metal projectiles. This battle will be easy," but the aliens had made a mistake. They thought they could adapt to human weapons. They didn't understand that the real change wasn't in the weapons. It was in the humans using them. The first sign of trouble came when the human ships got close enough to fight. Instead of staying in safe formations and shooting from far away, the human ships charged straight at the aliens like they wanted to ram them. "What are they doing?" the alien commander asked. "This is not how space battles work." The human ships crashed into the alien formation and started fighting at close range. Some human ships actually did ram the aliens, exploding both ships, but taking out much bigger alien vessels. "They're fighting like they don't care if they die," an alien officer reported. "They're sacrificing their ships to destroy ours." But it wasn't just sacrifice. The humans were using tactics that made no sense to the aliens. They would pretend to run away, then turn around and attack when the aliens chased them. They would hide behind asteroids and jump out like bandits. Jake Morrison led his ship in. A wild charge against 3 alien vessels. Instead of shooting his best weapons first, he shot clouds of metal scraps and garbage at them. The aliens' shields, designed to stop energy beams, couldn't handle thousands of tiny pieces of metal flying. At high speed, "Fire the harpoons," Jake ordered. Giant metal spears shot out of his ship and stuck into the alien vessels. Then his ship pulled on the cables attached to the spears, dragging the alien ships out of formation. "This is madness," the alien commander shouted. "They're fighting like pirates." That was exactly what the humans were doing. They had stopped trying to fight like a proper military and started fighting like criminals and raiders and anyone else who fought to survive instead of fighting to win cleanly. On the ground, the war was changing too. Colonel Steve Parker now commanded human forces across multiple planets. His soldiers didn't look like soldiers anymore. They looked like warriors from humanity's ancient past. "The aliens are sending more ground troops to Earth," reported Major Tony Rodriguez. He was Steve's new second-in-command, a tough man who had learned to fight with both modern weapons and ancient ones. "How many?" Steve asked. "About 50,000. They'll land in 3 days. Steve smiled. Good. We're ready for them. The humans on Earth had been preparing for months. They had built traps and obstacles that looked like they came from medieval times. They had trained every civilian who could hold a weapon. And they had prepared surprises that the aliens couldn't possibly expect. When the alien ships landed, they found Earth's defenders waiting for them. But these weren't the same humans who had retreated and died for 3 years. These humans had war paint on their faces and fire in their eyes. Charge! Steve yelled, leading his soldiers in a wild attack that looked more like a riot than a military operation. The aliens were shocked. They had expected the humans to hide behind walls and shoot at them from far away. Instead, the humans ran right at them with loud screams and weapons that seemed to come from a dozen different time periods. Some humans carried modern rifles. Others had swords and spears. Some threw bottles full of burning liquid. Others shot crossbows or swung big hammers. A few just ran at the aliens with nothing but their fists and their anger. The aliens tried to adapt, but there was too much chaos. Their learning systems couldn't keep up with an enemy that used every type of weapon ever invented, all at the same time. Fall back, the alien ground commander ordered. Regroup and adapt. But the humans didn't let them regroup. They chased the aliens through the streets and forests, fighting them in small groups that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Every time the aliens tried to set up a defensive position, humans would attack them from a different direction with different weapons. In space, the battle was going just as badly for the aliens. Admiral Brooks had divided her fleet into small groups that attacked like wolf packs. They would hit an alien ship from all sides, then disappear before the aliens could fight back properly. We're losing ships, the alien fleet commander reported to his superiors. But we're destroying even more human ships. Why does this feel like a defeat? The answer was simple. The humans were willing to lose ships to win battles. They were willing to sacrifice everything to hurt the aliens. And every human ship that died took multiple alien ships with it. Commander Rick Davis was leading a group of science ships in the battle. But his ships weren't just for science anymore. They were covered with weapons that looked like they belonged in a scrapyard. Deploy the rust bombs, Rick ordered. His ships shot containers that broke open and spread a cloud of chemicals through space. When the chemicals touched the alien ships, the metal started to rust and fall apart. The aliens had never seen anything like it. They're using industrial chemicals as weapons, the alien science officer reported. Our ships can't adapt to this. It's not a weapon. It's just ... chemistry. That was the genius of the human strategy. They weren't using weapons that were designed to fight wars. They were using anything that could hurt the aliens, whether it was meant to be a weapon or not. Some human ships shot clouds of paint that stuck to alien ships and made them blind. Others used giant magnets to grab alien vessels and smash them together. A few ships just rammed into aliens while playing loud music that hurt the aliens' sensitive hearing. The aliens were getting frustrated. They had been winning the war easily for 3 years. Now they were struggling to fight an enemy that seemed to have no rules and no sense. Request reinforcements, the alien commander ordered. Send every ship we have. We need to end this quickly. But the alien high command was worried. They had expected to conquer humanity in a few months. Instead, the war had been going on for 3 years and was now getting harder instead of easier. The humans have changed, the alien supreme commander told his council. They're not fighting like a civilized species anymore. They're fighting like wild animals. Then we adapt, another alien leader said. We learn to fight wild animals. How do you adapt to chaos? The supreme commander asked. How do you learn to fight an enemy that uses every weapon ever invented, all at the same time? Back on Earth, the human counterattack was succeeding beyond everyone's hopes. The aliens were retreating from multiple planets. Human colonies that had been destroyed were being rebuilt. For the first time in 3 years, humanity was winning, but the cost was high. Many human ships and soldiers had died in the fighting. The tactics that were working required people to risk everything in every battle. General Pete Williams sat in his command center, watching reports from battles across human space. The numbers were good, but he knew this was just the beginning. The aliens will adapt eventually, he told Colonel Lisa Martinez. They're smart. They'll figure out how to fight us. Maybe, Lisa said. But will they figure it out before we drive them out of human space? Pete looked at the star map. The red areas were getting smaller. The blue areas were growing. Humanity was taking back its territory, one battle at a time. There's something else, Pete said. The aliens are calling for reinforcements. Big ones. They're scared of us now. Lisa smiled. Good. Let them be scared. We've been scared for 3 years. It's their turn. The war was changing. The aliens were no longer the unstoppable force they had been. They were learning that humanity was more dangerous than they had ever imagined. But the biggest battle was still coming. The aliens were gathering their largest fleet ever. They were going to try to end the war with one massive attack on Earth. The human leaders knew this was coming. Spy satellites had seen the alien ships gathering in empty space, far from any human colony. There were more alien ships in that fleet than humans had ever seen in one place. They're bringing everything they have, Admiral Brooks reported. At least 2,000 ships, maybe more. How many ships do we have? Pete asked. About 400, Brooks said. But they're all equipped with the new weapons and tactics. Pete nodded. The odds were still terrible, but they were better than they had been in years. And the humans had something now that they hadn't had before. The largest fleet in alien history moved toward Earth, like a black storm across the stars. 2,000 alien ships, each one bigger than the biggest human vessel. The alien Supreme Commander led them personally, determined to end the war that had gone on too long. The humans have been lucky, the Supreme Commander told his officers. They surprised us with their primitive tactics, but luck runs out. Today, we show them what real power looks like. The alien fleet was perfect. Every ship was adapted to fight the new human weapons. Their hulls could resist fire and acid. Their armor could stop metal projectiles. Their shields could handle chemical attacks. They had learned from every human trick, but the aliens had made the same mistake they always made. They thought the war was about weapons and tactics. They didn't understand that it was about something much more basic. It was about who wanted to win more. Admiral Nancy Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the alien fleet approach. The human fleet looked tiny compared to the alien armada. 400 ships against 2,000. It should have been hopeless. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks, she announced. Today we end this war, not because we have better ships or better weapons, but because we're fighting for our home. We're fighting for the right to exist. And no one fights harder than someone who has nothing left to lose. Captain Jake Morrison was leading the first wave of human ships. His vessel, the U.S. Retribution, looked like it had been built in a junkyard. Its hull was covered with welded metal plates and spikes. Its weapons were a mix of high-tech missiles and ancient siege engines. "Sir, the aliens are trying to talk to us," reported Lieutenant Amy Collins. "Put them on," Jake said. The alien Supreme Commander appeared on the screen. He was huge, with 4 arms and skin that looked like metal. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humans," the alien said, "you have fought well for a primitive species. But this ends now. Surrender, and we will give you a quick death." Jake looked at the alien for a long moment. Then he smiled. "You want to know what I think?" Jake said. I think you're scared. I think you came here with 2,000 ships because you're afraid of what 400 human ships might do to you." The alien's eyes widened. "You dare. I dare everything," Jake said. "That's what makes us human. We dare to fight when we should run. We dare to hope when we should despair. And we dare to win when everyone says we should lose." Jake cut the connection and turned to his crew. "All ships, attack pattern crazy. Show them what human really means." The human fleet charged at the alien armada like a pack of wild dogs attacking a herd of elephants. They didn't try to fight a careful battle. They just attacked with everything they had, in every way they could think of. Some human ships rammed straight into alien vessels, exploding both ships, but taking out much larger enemies. Others fired every weapon they had at once, from laser cannons to harpoons to bottles of acid. A few ships just flew in circles around the aliens, shooting at them from all directions, while playing loud music that hurt the aliens' ears. The aliens tried to respond with their perfect tactics and adapted weapons. But there was too much chaos. Every time they figured out how to stop one human attack, 3 more different attacks would hit them from other directions. "This is impossible," the alien Supreme Commander shouted. "They're not fighting like a military. They're fighting like maniacs. Should we retreat and regroup?" Asked his second-in-command. "No, we have 2,000 ships. We will not be defeated by 400 crazy humans." But the aliens were being defeated, not because the humans had better ships or weapons, but because the humans were willing to do anything to win. They turned their own ships into weapons. They used their life support systems as bombs. They rammed alien ships while their crews were still inside Dot in one famous moment. A human ship called the Lucky Strike was surrounded by 5 alien vessels. The captain, a woman named Carol Davis, ordered her crew to abandon ship. Then she flew the ship straight into the center of the alien formation and set off every explosive on board. The explosion destroyed all 5 alien ships and created a hole in their formation that other human ships poured through. On Earth, the ground battle was just as fierce. The aliens had landed 1 million soldiers on the planet. They expected to find scared humans hiding in bunkers. Instead, they found an entire world that had turned itself into a weapon. Colonel Steve Parker led the defense of New York City. His soldiers didn't wear uniforms anymore. They wore whatever they could find, painted their faces like ancient warriors, and fought with weapons that came from every era of human history. "Welcome to Earth," Steve shouted as he led a charge against alien troops. He was carrying a sword in one hand and a flamethrower in the other. "This is how we say hello to uninvited guests." The aliens tried to use their standard tactics, but the humans wouldn't let them. Every time the aliens tried to set up a defensive position, humans would attack it from underground tunnels, or from the tops of buildings, or from directions that made no sense. Children threw rocks at alien soldiers. Old people shot crossbows from windows. Teenagers drove cars loaded with explosives into alien formations. The entire population of Earth had become an army, and they were all fighting like their lives depended on it. Because they did. The battle raged for 3 days. In space, the human fleet was slowly losing ships, but they were taking far more alien ships with them. On Earth, the aliens were winning ground, but losing soldiers at a rate that scared their commanders. "We're losing too many ships," the alien Supreme Commander's officers told him. "The humans are willing to die to hurt us. We're not." "Then we adapt," the commander roared. "We learn to fight like they do." But that was impossible. The aliens had spent thousands of years becoming perfect at logical, efficient warfare. They couldn't suddenly learn to fight like wild animals. They couldn't learn to care more about winning than about their own lives. The turning point came when Jake Morrison led the last 50 human ships in a desperate attack on the alien command vessel. His ship was barely holding together, its hull cracked and burning. Most of his crew was dead or injured. "Jake, we can't win this," Amy Collins said. She was hurt, but still at her post. "There are too many of them." "We don't have to win," Jake said. "We just have to make them lose." Jake's ship and the other human vessels charged straight at the alien Supreme Commander's massive flagship. The aliens shot at them with everything they had, but the humans kept coming. They were like a pack of wounded animals making one last. Desperate attack. Jake's ship crashed into the alien flagship and exploded. The blast tore through the alien ship's hull and destroyed its command center. The alien Supreme Commander died in the explosion, along with most of his senior officers. Without their leader, the alien fleet began to fall apart. Some ships tried to retreat. Others tried to continue fighting. But they had lost their coordination, and the remaining human ships picked them off one by one. On Earth, the news of the space battle victory spread quickly. The human defenders fought even harder, knowing that their friends in space had won. The alien ground forces, hearing that their fleet was destroyed, began to retreat. "They're running," Steve Parker shouted. "The aliens are running." It was true. All across Earth, alien soldiers were trying to get back to their ships and escape. But the humans weren't letting them go easily. They chased the aliens through the streets and forests, fighting them all the way. In the end, fewer than half of the alien soldiers made it off Earth. The rest were captured or killed by humans who had learned to fight like their ancestors did thousands of years ago. The war was over. Humanity had won, not because they had better technology or smarter tactics, but because they had refused to give up. They had said enough to being victims, and they had meant it. General Pete Williams stood in his command center, watching the reports come in from around the galaxy. The alien fleets were retreating everywhere. Some alien worlds were sending messages asking for peace. The mighty Zephyrian Dominion was falling apart. "Sir, we're getting surrender offers from 17 alien fleets," reported Colonel Lisa Martinez. "They want to negotiate." Pete smiled. "Tell them we'll think about it. But remind them that we still have about 10,000 years of human warfare tactics we haven't used yet." The message went out across the galaxy. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction, and they had responded by becoming more human than ever before. They had stopped trying to fight like a civilized species and started fighting like what they really were, the descendants of creatures who had clawed their way to the top of their world through sheer determination and controlled violence. The aliens had been winning the war right up until humanity said enough. And when humans said enough, they meant it with every weapon they had ever invented, every tactic they had ever learned, and every drop of stubborn blood in their veins. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. They had learned what happens when you push humans too far. They had learned what enough really meant, and they would never forget.